today I'd like to introduce you to some shamanic and sort of farming sickles. I'm Paul Wilkinson, and I'm living and working in Kathmandu for the last seven years, travelling all over Nepal and working, filming the shaman, and also making other cultural documentaries about their festivals and about their arts and cultural life. So on the table here I've got a whole range of sickles which are used for a range of different purposes. This is a rye sickle, usually worn by the rye women. So the rye is a caste group, particularly actually in the British Army. You have a lot of rye going into the sort of Gurkhas. A lot of the rye are on that border between Bhutan and Nepal as well. So before the border was a hard border, they were on both sides of the border. And then a lot of the shaman came in from Bhutan when Bhutan became a sort of Buddhist kingdom. They were supposed to swear allegiance to Buddhism, and so a lot of the shaman then came, including my teacher Mohan Rai, who was originally from Bhutan. So these have this very distinctive curved shape. These are used for gathering herbs and for doing sort of divination with ginger. So they'll have a lump of ginger in their cup like that, and then the way it cuts and the way it falls, they're asking and then answering questions with that. And then you have these little spirals on the end, almost like a sort of ankh symbol on the end there, and a little wooden holster which is worn on the belt like that. So that stays in, it's worn at the back behind, almost like a sort of like the way you would wear a knife or a gun. So you have a whole variety of sort of flower of life designs, which I'll show you, and a few other designs as well. So this is also another rye sickle, extremely rare to have a face on it, and the face is probably of a Mashan. So Mashan are very powerful ghosts or spirits which the shaman use for sending out to do particularly difficult jobs. So Mohan told me all sorts of stories about shamans summoning Mashan to be able to cross a flooded river, to bring crops in from one side of the river to another, to build houses quickly when there wasn't enough labour force, or to do other magical tasks like going into the spirit world and retrieving particular pieces of knowledge. And he often described using the Mashan as like a sort of conscription. He said they didn't like it, but it was a bit like being in a sort of spiritual army for the shaman, and it was good for their karma, it was good for their development. So I think this is a Mashan, and you've got the similar design, this time only with a single spiral of forged iron. And I think I've got one more rye sickle here. And you see with the fabric, when they attach to the shamanic fervour, represents the rainbow. And it also sometimes a promise, like you get bound around the wrist when you've done particular rituals, and they'll tie it like a sort of sealing of the ritual. So these are used mostly for herbs. This also is a shamanic piece with a serrated blade. You can see it's rusted. I've cleaned up the blade, and it's got with this deer horn handle and this fabric. So the fabric in this case, this would be used for cutting plants, cutting herbs, but also for maybe for other types of magic, extracting negative energy, cleaning, in the same way as a shamanic knife would be used for cleaning the etheric body, for pinning down negative energy, for travelling with, going on a journey, for energising. So something like, you can see like that, absolutely beautiful shaman knife. That would often be put in a pot of water so they'd energise it, and then the person drinking it, and they're doing mantras with this. And then the deer horn is also an active end. So you've got, in this case, a more masculine hard edge and the more feminine horn, even though it's still a hard substance. So this is sort of like a Ferber in the sense as well, that it's like a wand. And in some senses, the sickles also have that function. So I've included these, which some of these would be used domestically for cutting grass or for cutting branches off of trees and so on. But there's a lot of crossover. So I've seen shaman in Sindaparjuk and in Lumjung wearing the same sickles as farmers, because they're also often farming at the same time. This is also probably a shamanic sickle because it's got a lot of extra decoration and sort of magical designs all the way around in the forged iron, with a sort of spiralling. And the zigzag is quite often related to growth as well, sometimes related to water and sometimes related to rice shoots. You see this very beautiful designs, stars, looks like fish, flowers, very, very nice in the forged work. And then in the top as well, these crisscross and looks a little bit like mountains. So that's a bit bigger, so that would be used for chopping trees and shrubs. And then in the holster, you've got these 4 sort of flower of life type designs. These are sometimes mandalic as well, so you get these sort of grids in Naga ceremonies, where they'll count off the certain patterns, usually in red and yellow and white. So let's run through a few of these. So you've got, again, something similar, so that would probably come from the same sort of regional area. Now this is, I'll just show you, that's very nice. These are old, they're probably hundreds of years old, and you can see where the hardwood handle has split over time, and you've got this very nice ironwork forged repair where you can always tell the forged iron because it's been hand hammered, so you get these lovely flat marks. That's, even making a piece of iron like that is a lot of work. Can you imagine banging that out from a solid chunk of iron until you've ended up with a thin wire that you can tie and strengthen? So, and the same, even this is like probably jute or hemp with the string plaited in, a double plaited. So really very nice. And then this one has little, slightly simpler, and this top, so but a much more, you see the hammer marks here, very nice edge on the blade still, but a different sort of a shape. So I need to try and meet up with a horticulturalist for what the specific uses are for the specific shapes. Another very heavy one. It's beautiful decorative design. Really lovely weight to it. I mean, I've seen people doing sacrifices with these as well, and I don't know yet whether there's whether killing something with a sickle means something different than if you're using a cookery knife. So, you know, if you were, that's a bit too small for a buffalo, but you could take a goat with that. But the reason I brought the cookery out is these are sort of multi-purpose knives. So this is a shamanic knife from the Mugger people from far west Nepal, with a little head here and arms and legs on the bottom and a cast handle. That's a sort of standard shape of a cookery knife. This piece is to stop the blood running down onto your hand, and it's and the groove as well here. And but these are sort of, so when you're travelling up in the mountains, it's quite normal for someone to be carrying a knife like that size or like this tucked in the belt. Often they have a waistband, and then they'll be carrying the sickle for all the sort of farming type work at the back with that round the waist. And you can see this sort of knot here, so you can tighten it up. This is really refined, probably for rice, but also maybe for other things, because it's got quite a delicate shape. And again, you can see this really interesting shape of plants and leaves with the zigzag, and little pieces of red coral, which are pretty valuable, put in and one piece missing. And very, very nice, these things, and you can see where it's designed to tie around the waist and wear. So some of my customers are Western Druids, and they're one of the main symbols for the Druids are the sickles. But obviously in the West now it's very difficult to find a traditional ritual sickle, so it's also like a symbol for the feminine and for the moon, like the crescent moon. Again, this sort of a variation on the flower of life design. So over, we've got another small one. You can see where they've worn over the years. This probably would have been longer at some point. So I'm making a real point of trying to commission blacksmiths in some of the areas that I visit regularly. Often the blacksmiths are unlanded, and so they've got a high level of skill, and sometimes lower caste as well. Sometimes it depends on the regional groups, but quite often they have less money, and so they're really dependent on making the cookery knives and the sickles and trishals and other metalwork items. And at the moment Nepal's going through a bit of a crisis where a lot of the younger people have gone abroad to earn money and to send money back, and so some of the farmland isn't being farmed, and so the people like the blacksmiths are slightly below the threshold of survival. So you've got this real drain of traditional skills leaving the system, and then once they're gone, they're gone. So because you really need, from father to son or from mother to daughter, these skills to be passed on. So this is interesting because we've got, you see here, you've got like the flower of life type pattern, but it's almost like a traditional bag, and then you've got like a crescent, like the moon and the sun rising up, which is very like the Nepali flag as well. And you see in the top where that can rest and not really jump out. Nice traditional simple sickle up. This is a traditional shaman bag. You see the similarity where it's got this is very old, probably hundreds of years old, and leather. and with the pouch. Interesting to have the design like a shaman bag on the, so that this might well have been used by a shaman. And again with this sort of design for growth and renewal. When I got this, the leather strap was actually damaged, and I've had it fixed with a leather worker. But amazing, I love the sort of sense of touch. And you've got the two little pouches. So a shaman would keep their herbs and things, so maybe this would be the herb bag where they're going out, maybe keep a fervour or something in that while they're going out and about. And then if they're going and doing a large ritual, they usually have a much bigger basket, something that they can carry, sometimes made of rattan or woven and then covered often in leather. I'll make another video with those. Then another with this patterned design. You can see again that where this has had some sort of ritual use. So the fabric often representing the rainbow, like a bridge between different worlds. So again, this, because of that, I could say this probably used by a shaman. And another really heavy one, so this is bigger. So they often crop certain sorts of trees for the cows and buffalo. Little notches out of the blade here. Hardwood handle, quite heavy blade. A very interesting design. I'm not sure quite what that means. It really looks like some sort of shoot coming in, or like an eye. I mean, one of the things I do with when I find a symbol that I don't quite recognise is I have very good memory for shape and pattern, but I also take photographs, and then when I'm in the right location, I'll spot it. You know, maybe I'll spot someone wearing something similar, and I'll ask them about the pattern, and I'll ask the shaman. So that's a little introduction really to the sickles, showing the ones that are exclusively shamanic, like these, ones which are probably shamanic but with some crossover, like this is almost certainly shamanic because of the parallel with the bag, almost certainly owned by a shaman, because it's representing their other artifacts that they would use. Something like that, which again is almost certainly shamanic because of the extra decorative work, and the magical designs in the blade, and then interesting things like this, which are, you can see the amount of wear in the handle and the ribbons here, both for the rainbow in the same way as you have on the fervour, and also often tied on as some sort of ritual promise. Actually, these ribbons are really stinky, so maybe I need to wash them and leave it in the sun for a little bit. When you're dealing with antique items, there's a balancing act between like how much do you clean something, how much do you look after it, so and repairing things, whether you, like I've got a little shamanic knife with the handle missing, and the knife is just beautifully made, so I'll find a handle for that, and then I would tell if that goes to someone. Quite often I'm supplying shaman, like Western shaman, from all over the world who need traditional tools, and so I'll always say, look, I mended the handle on this. But it's a very interesting process, because you can see here this knife, this shaman knife, has an absolutely amazing quality to it, and the blade is clean, and I've newly sharpened it. And it sort of, when you're working with things like the ritual knives, there's a type of energy where you're cleaning something, and renewing it, because maybe this might be 300 or 400 years old and the original shaman's long since dead, and then it might have passed through a number of generations and then suddenly fallen out of use because there's no one in the family who's got the energy, and then ended up on the market in some way. And these objects are designed to be used. They're designed for magical use, and they're full of energy and knowledge. And so when I get them, I look after things, I clean them up. I wouldn't over polish it because it's very old, but I will put a new edge on the blade, for instance. And I was doing that last night. I had a number of shamanic knives, and I was up until about 3 or 4 in the morning, and just sharpening up a number of knives. And there was a sort of joy coming off of them. It was like they were getting ready for their work again. And it felt like a really deep sense of respect. I mean, when you really start handling something, you just the absolute beauty of the way that's been made. And the handle here, the scabbard. I sort of absolutely love the objects. And this strange, I was looking through last night, looking for these, and also looking through all the shamanic knives, and I found this in a shaman basket that I'd completely forgotten about. And it's with a lot of objects that needed to repair. It's absolutely wonderful, the delicacy of the way that's been forged. But this, very strange, probably representing a rising sun, but it's a nice shape that I've never seen before, and so I now need to try and investigate that. And this, very interesting. So I've seen stone monuments a little bit like that, related to shaman in West Nepal. And I've seen pictures of something similar in Nagaland as well. But I have, this came out of a Mugger shaman box, also from far West Nepal. But that's very interesting, whether this is for particular rituals to be done at dawn. So I now need to ask. So when you're working with these things, you end up with a whole list of questions, and by having a number of these the objects together, you begin to cross-reference them, and you can suddenly see that actually this is a theme. It's something to explore and to ask more questions about. So I hope you found that interesting, and do subscribe. Do let me know if there are other things other videos you'd like to see, and I'll see you at the next one. Thank you.